I gotta tell you what, this is probably my favorite book in the series so far. Hey everyone, welcome back to Andrew's Wizardly Reads, and as always guys, I am Andrew, and today guys, we are here for a book review. But before we get into this book review, please like this video and subscribe to the channel, as it does help the channel grow. And you can check the description box down below for links to all my social media, including information about my Patreon, my Discord, my Pango books. It's all there for you to explore. Now, what book are we reviewing today? Well, it's one I read a little while ago, and I've just been procrastinating recording, and it is book number 5. That's right, this is book number 5 of The Wandering Inn. So if you haven't read up to this point, well, you can watch, but I will be talking spoilers. This is The Last Light, and let me tell you what, this is probably my favorite in the series so far. It was a banger. It was so incredibly good. That's my rating right out of the way. It was a banger. It was incredibly good, and this feels like a launching off point for the series. I don't think I'm prepared for what's coming in general of Israel? Iversil? I don't know. I can never pronounce it. But guys, we get so many great and important plot points in this particular one. Starting out, let's talk about Floss. We finally get to explore Floss at the beginning of this book. And it's really, really interesting kind of getting to explore him with his generals and these two other people from Earth whose names escape me. But man, like, Floss needs somebody to be able to stand up to him and tell him no, and when he's being unrealistic. Like with the thing with his dead friend's head. And he's like, I'm not gonna bury it until, I've conquered my enemies. And like, they have to go, hey, that's kind of messed up and weird. Don't do that. Maybe bury the head and get vengeance anyway. And Floss is like, yeah, maybe you've got a point. And there is one thing that bugged me about the entire Floss area. Like, I loved getting the backstory of Floss, and I loved the flashbacks with the characters and him kind of winning back towns and going on just these kind of walks. He was just like, what are you doing? I'm going on a walk. And like whenever he would go on a walk, he would conquer a city. I loved that. It was just like, oh yeah, I'm using my skill, reinforced marching. I'm just going on a walk. And like everybody else knows what he's doing. He's like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm going on a walk. It was fantastic. There was the one hot topic issue, and I don't know how I would address this. There's the one hot topic issue of in-world, slavery is okay. And we've got the people from our world where obviously we know slavery isn't okay. And instead of trying to give well-reasoned arguments of why Floss should give up slavery and outlaw it and kind of work from the inside out and like change his mind and be like, hey, this is wrong, which 100% agree, everything about that is wrong. Instead, one of our characters just decides to throw a temper tantrum and expects Floss to respect that. And it's like he just starts screaming and yelling. He goes on hunger strike. He locks himself in his room, which, great. Like, if that's how you want to like show your displeasure, fine. But it was just very petulant. And of course, knowing me, I have a problem with petulance in books. I don't like petulant characters. And that was a moment of petulance that seemed to spoil his entire argument. Instead of giving well-reasoned arguments, he just kind of thrashed around and threw a tantrum about this particular hot topic, which I agree he should address with Floss. But he does it the wrong way. And it was never going to work out that way. He was never going to get any traction. We get this nice little moment with Halfgazer in this character. And again, names are escaping me. It's been about 2 months since I read this book. And we get this kind of like backstory into Halfgazer, Gazi, the Omniscience, backstory and where she comes from and how Floss helped her and why she's so devoted to Floss is because she was a slave and Floss freed her. And I was like, oh, that's all really cool. But, like, do what Gazi's doing or work with Gazi or something. Don't just throw a temper tantrum about it and expect to, like, change a country. That seemed very, very silly to me. We then also get to come back to the Last Light, and I forget the doctor's name. But we get to come back to this character, and she's kind of set up her tent again. She's working through with her Selthid partner on like just constantly leveling up and healing more and more people. We again get another group of Earthers who have all transported over in a group. They end up on a battlefield. They end up joining a mercenary company, and they wander battlefields and they poke the corpses to make sure that they're not about to come back as zombies. And that's their whole thing. They're not supposed to be part of battle, and yet they keep getting drawn into battle. They keep getting damaged. A bunch of them can't deal with it, try to run away and get executed. I loved this entire section because then they kind of break the Articles of War and they attack the Doctor. And it's kind of interesting to see how that all plays out. They end up forming their own mercenary company at the end as they get away. I love pretty much everything about this section. It was really, really good, but still a little short. Like, the book is called The Last Light. It's maybe 10 to 15% of the book. And then we don't come back to this character at all within this entry. I think this is Ryoka's best outing so far. I do want to say that, like, Ryoka learns a lot with Eveleth, and she starts kind of opening up. She finally goes and meets Garia's family. She's spending time with Garia. We get the send-off of Eveleth at the end of the story and everything like that. She tees off the Necromancer right good. I really liked all of the interactions at the end of the book, which will just kind of bring in Aaron into this part of the review. Because, frankly, Aaron, and with the death of Brunker, but Brunker gets knighted, there's just so many, like, explosive moments at the end of the book that, it all kind of blends together. So I kind of want to come back to the whole Brunker thing a little later in the review. Let's talk about Laken, because Laken, I think, has the most lackluster section of the book, where it's just kind of he returns, and, initially him being an emperor was, very, very novel when it first happens, and I think in book 3. And now it just kind of feels like old hat. I'm not much interested or invested in this storyline pretty much at all anymore. I still like the fact that, we get some Laken, but at the same time, now, they're just being attacked by goblins, and they've already gotten the aid, and they've already returned to their town. And I don't know where this story's going to go, because I'm not really interested in it anymore. I have a feeling he's going to come up against Rags, but I'm not interested in Rags' story anymore either. So hopefully we can kind of bring this back around. Let's talk a little bit of Torin, because Torin kind of finds his way into the dungeon, and he kind of stumbles across some clothes and stuff like that, and decides to dress up and become almost like an adventurer. The one section where Torin's just like, I could probably kill these adventurers that I'm walking around with, and he chooses not to because they're being nice to him, and he's like, I kind of like the fact that these people are being nice to me. I loved this entire section of the book. It was fan-freaking-tastic. It was just so incredibly good. Can we talk about Oz-Karash? Oz-Karash seems to be he's like my favorite type of villain. He's just very matter of fact with everything. He's just like, hey, I have the ability to ruin your life. I'm not going to if you play ball. And then he switches it up. He's like, never mind. I don't feel like being nice to you. I'm going to kill you. And then of course we get Teriarch involved, and Ryoka runs to Teriarch for protection, and she's like, hey Teriarch, all of this is your fault. All because you wanted to send this stupid necromancer a birthday gift without thinking of any of the repercussions. Who do you think you are? And I like that Teriarch goes, you know what? You're kind of right. And takes her under his protection. I loved all of that. I loved how he just, Teriarch just smacks the little minions of Oz-Karash around. It was so incredibly good. This is a gush review. I am fully 100% in to The Wandering Inn at this point. I need to come back to the series with book number 6 when I can fit it in. But so far, I've got nothing but real praise for the book, other than the Laken and stuff. We don't really get any Rags that I can recall in book number 5, which I'm kind of okay with, because I don't really vibe with the Goblin storyline all that much. But man, when we get to the end of the book, I really want to talk about the end of this book, because we do get the knighting of Brunker. We then get his murder by the 2 minions of Oz-Karash, and they just do it to kind of get back at Ryoka because they're mad at Ryoka. And initially, like, I was like, this is dumb. Like, this was just a horrible waste of Brunker's character. That was my initial knee-jerk reaction. And then as I, like, kind of got into it, I was like, you know, that's kind of like life sometimes. He wanted to be a warrior, and he just kind of thought somebody was a hero and was like a named adventurer. And then they killed him right out of the blue. And that was a kind of, it showcased the brutality of Inworld. And I was okay with it by the end of the book. But my knee-jerk reaction was like, I hate this. I wanted a full redemption arc for Brunker. But that's not how life works. You don't always get the full redemption arc. But he was coming around. Like, he was being nice to Mersha. His arm was healing. He got knighted. He got his dream class. And man, like, the sadness that everybody felt at Brunker's death. I was like, you know what? This character got his redemption arc anyway, and everybody banded together to fight for him. There's the big brawl that, like, the entire scuffle ends up back at the end, the Wandering Inn, and we get the deaths of many characters, and many people get injured. The inn gets busted up. A bunch of people leave Aaron's establishment because they can no longer stay there because it reminds them of their dead friends and the passings and everything like that. It was a really, really strong ending to the book. We get just so much that is just, I don't know. It's so hard to process the ramifications. I feel like I haven't even felt the ramifications yet. We get Eveleth's sacrifice to save Ryoka, just to buy her. She interferes in fate for Ryoka, for her friend, and then vanishes. But I don't think we've seen the last of Eveleth. I think she's been banished from the world. And like, even Terriarch's like, yeah, she won't be allowed back into this world for like 1,000 years. And I think we're going to hopefully find a way around that, because Eveleth was my favorite Frost Fairy. We get the end of winter. Spring has arrived in Inworld. And I'm just kind of excited to see where this story is going to go. I've still got one more book left in this volume. Previously, I had stated, the next book is The Blood, Tears, and Rains of Lascore. I was wrong. There's a whole other book that I didn't even get around to. My brain completely blocked it out. So I'm very, very excited. But, I mean, at this point, this was a very rambly, very unstructured review. I'm just going to say it's my favorite so far. It was so good. It had some of the hardest hitting moments. All of the sections made sense and self-contained. There's the one, like, temper tantrum thing at the beginning I didn't like. I don't really care for Lakin all that much. I don't dislike Lakin. He's just not really doing anything for me on the page currently. So we shall see how the story progresses. But of course, I will be back for another review once I have read book number 6. That's all I've really got for you today, guys. I hope you are doing well. If you are a Wandering Inn fan, let me know in the comments down below what were some of your favorite moments in The Last Light, book number 5 of this series. But that's all I've really got. So till next time, peace out and stay magical. Bye. And as always, I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons. Thank you for supporting my passion and my hobby.